Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a step-by-step tutorial to recreate one of your favorite presets from our latest pack Stardust, based on your feedbacks. Want to recreate that iconic talkbox sound using nothing but Serum? Stick around then, because I'll show you how in just a few simple steps. While we won't be breaking down how an actual talkbox works in detail today, the core idea is that it produces a robotic, synthesized vocal effect you can play with a keyboard or guitar. Today's preset won't replicate the exact speech-like clarity of a real talkbox, but it captures the essence of that very distinctive sound, and it will get us close using only Serum. Before we start, it's worth noting that MIDI plays a crucial role in nailing this sound. Here's the MIDI file we'll use for this tutorial, starting with an init patch. Pay attention to elements like pitch bending, note length, legatos and ghost notes to make it as expressive as possible. Let's get started. Load an init preset in Serum. Turn on oscillator A, load the surrounded wavetable, and set the wavetable position to around 14. Adjust envelope 1 and set the attack time to around 30 milliseconds. Reduce the sustain to -3 dB, and use the magnify tool to curve the attack slightly. Activate the filter, select the Form 2 filter, set the cutoff to 0, resonance to around 75%, and drive to around 65%. Set the voicing to mono and legato. Here's how it should sound so far. Now let's add modulations to bring our sound to life. Set LFO1 to envelope mode and shape it like this. Assign it to the formant control on the filter with a modulation range up to 60. Assign LFO2 to the cutoff with a modulation range of about 60 as well, and change the rate from a quarter note to 1 bar. That's the foundation of our talkbox sound. Now let's add some processing to refine and enhance the sound. Start your effect chain with a distortion on downsample mode. Set the filter to pre with a frequency around 800 Hz, a width of 1.4, and set the mod fader to 50%. Adjust drive to 20%. Next up, let's add some space using the dimension expander. Turn hyper mix to 0, set the dimension mix around 20, and adjust the size to 25. Then let's add a multi-band compressor to emphasize these effects. Set the main threshold to around -10 dB and the low and high bands thresholds to 0. Next, load the EQ, add a low shelf set to 300 Hz to reduce excessive lows and cut everything above 10 kHz to clean up the highs. Here's what we've done so far. Our sound is taking shape, but let's add some movement for that extra sparkle. In the Oscillator tab, right-click on the cutoff knob and assign note on random 1 to modulate the filter cutoff. Use the matrix to set the modulation range to around 50. Let's add more movement by modulating the oscillator A pan with note on random 2. Ensure this modulation is bipolar in the Matrix tab and limit the range to about 50. Next, duplicate oscillator A settings and modulations to oscillator B via the main menu. Set oscillator B to 2 voices of unison with gentle detune to thicken up the sound and fill the sides, and route it through the filter as well. Let's add some depth and color. In the Effects tab, add a delay with a slapback style effect. Set feedback to 0, filter cutoff to 1.2 kHz, and filter width to minimum. Add a reverb with a size around 25%, a decay of 2.5 seconds, and cuts to both low and high frequencies. Finally, set both effect mix to 0% for now. Here's a useful trick. assign an envelope to negatively modulate the mix knobs of both the delay and reverb by around 50%. This will reduce the effects during note playback and brings them back when the note is released, filling gaps and adding space without making the sound too washed out. We'll use a macro later to control these effects. Let's move on to the finishing touches. Back in the oscillator tab, turn on the sub-oscillator, set it 1 octave lower, and choose a saw wave. Set its level to 0, assign macro 1 to control it with a range of 70, and route it through the filter. From there, we can automate the macro to emphasize specific notes, creating kind of a call and response feel. For more control over the tone of this sound, we'll use macro 2 to adjust the EQ low shelf frequency negatively, so the more we're turning the knob, the more we're getting back some low mids to emphasize the body of the sound. Assign macro 3 to the high band threshold. Increasing the threshold will push more high-frequency content forward, adding clarity and presence. Just be careful not to overdo it and keep the modulation range around 50%. Finally, assign macro 4 to control the reverb and delay mix, keeping them between 25 to 35%. And remember, they're already modulated negatively by the envelope we added earlier. Lastly, let's finish with a filter to easily get final control over the tone of the sound. Add the FX filter, set it to a 12 dB low-pass filter, and assign the mod wheel to control its frequency. Add a touch of resonance, drive, and fat for character. And our processing chain is done. And that's it. We've recreated a Talkbox-inspired sound entirely within Serum. If you're interested, you'll find a link in the description to check out Stardust, packed with over 160 more awesome presets like this one, as well as 300 plus audio loops to spark your creativity. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you have any question or comment, feel free to comment below. Thanks for watching.